Hey guys, welcome back. In the last video, we talked about Python variables, object references, and naming conventions for the Python variables. If you haven't seen it, check it out because there, when we were talking about variables, I said variables can be used in a statement or expression and its value will be substituted, right? So that's what we are going to start with today. What is this statement and expression, and where is this value exactly going to be substituted? Right? So let's get into it. It's very simple actually. We are studying the basics here. So instructions that a Python interpreter can execute are called statements. Instructions in the sense when I say print hey, this is an instruction where we are instructing the computer to print hey and Python will execute it. That's why it's a statement, right? Instead of this, if I do something like this, both of these are statements. Here, we are asking Python to create a string object and assign a to point to it. So this is an assignment statement. Here, we are again asking it to print the value of whichever object A is pointing to. Right, so there are many such complicated statements like if-else statements, import statements, for or while loops, and not whatnot. But again, we'll talk about this later. I feel like I'm saying this a lot, because everything is connected here, and I'm just trying to link everything so that next time when you hear any of this, we can go back and recall that okay, this is where we talked about it first, and this is what it is. Okay. Okay, so there's another concept which I think is kind of going parallel with this. It's comments. Now, comments are purely for developers. I mean, Python ignores it. Like it does not execute it like statements. So to write a comment in Python, you simply put a hash in front of your desired comment. Okay, so this is a comment. Okay, this is a comment. I mean, I'm not good. So whenever Python comes across this hash mark, it knows that it has to ignore everything after that in that particular line. Okay, and it wouldn't execute it. Now this can be used to explain the Python code. Like if you have written some nice long working complicated code a long time ago and now you have to revisit it or maybe you have to modify it or something, trust me, you will have to spend a lot of time to parse through the code to understand what exactly each part of code does. So here we can use this comments, just like one line explaining the block of code. Later it's gonna save a lot of time, trust me. Now comments does not only have to be text to explain the code, it can also be used to prevent Python from executing the code. Like for example, if I run this, it's gonna print two hays, right? I don't want to print two hays for now. So I'll just put a hash in front of this. Now if I run this, see, Python doesn't execute it, right? This is used when you want to make some changes to your code, but you don't want to lose the original code, or if you don't want some part of code to run. Like here, I didn't want this print here to print, right? So I commented it, and if you again want to use it later, you can just uncomment it. Like, okay, I'll uncomment it now. Now it's gonna print two hays, right? And Python will execute it just like any other statements. Now there's also something called as multi-line comments. Like if you want to explain something in detail, we use multi-line comments. Or if it isn't just one line of code, it's block of code you don't want Python to execute, we use multi-line comments. Unfortunately, Python does not support multi-line commenting. You'll just have to put hash in front of each line, right? But putting a hash in front of each line is not supporting multi-line comments, right? But there's a keyboard shortcut to do that, to put hash in front of each line. You just select the block of code you want to comment. You press Control slash, right? It comments it. When you press it again, it uncomments it. Yeah, like I said, putting a hash in front of each line is not supporting multi-line comments. Uh, if you know, or even if you don't know, in Java, if you put a slash and asterisk at the start and at the end of the code, it will comment it. But now this is not Java, this is Python, obviously. So let's not do that. But now, yeah, this is how we support multi-line commenting. But in Python, okay, instead of this, if we put triple quotes, okay, I'll put triple quotes. And if we run this, okay, so using triple quotes instead of slash and asterisk, it works just fine. Python successfully ignores it. But it's not actually a syntax for commenting, it's a multi-line string in Python, and we haven't assigned it to any variable. So it's not called by your program and it doesn't appear in the bytecode. So yeah, it does effectively work like a comment. Okay, I guess let's stop talking about comments. You know it all now. I mean, there's always something to explore about everything, but again, I'll just leave that to you guys. Okay. Another thing we were about to talk was about expressions. You know what? Before talking about expressions, let's understand operators and operands. Operators are used to perform operations on variables and values, right? Very simple. Um, let's understand with an example. Okay, I'll assign 10 to A. I'll assign 20 to B. Okay, now there are many different operators. For example, this is an addition operator. It obviously adds operands A and B together. Operands are the value this operator is acting on, right? So if I print C, can you guess what I'm gonna get? Yes, I'm gonna get 30, right? An operand can either be a literal value or a variable that references an object. Now, by literal value, I mean like a literal value, like A plus B plus 60. Like this is a literal value, right? And if I print this D, yes, I'm gonna get 90. So this sequence of operators and operands is called an expression. This is an expression, right? This is an expression, a sequence of operators and operands. So here we are adding two numbers, adding two integers. You can do this with decimal numbers also. They are called floating point numbers in Python. It is one of the data type in Python. Of course, you can add floating point numbers. You can do this 12.22 plus 13.66. If I do this, right, I'm gonna get a floating point number as a result also. Uh, what if I add an integer object to a floating point object? What do you think? What is gonna happen? Python is gonna convert both objects to an object which is more precise. So if you see, floating point is obviously more precise. It takes up more space. So it converts itself to floating point, and the result is in floating point too. There's another numeric data type. That is complex. You know the complex number, and it is expressed as a plus bj, where a is the real part and b is the imaginary part. So we can do something like this: 2 plus 4j plus 6 plus 5j. And if I print this, I'm gonna get a complex number as a result, right? So, I can use this addition operator with strings also. It's called concatenation. So when I'm doing this, I'm actually concatenating the string melon at the end of the string water, and I get watermelon, right? So to sum it up, we use addition operator with integers, floating point numbers, complex numbers, and strings. These are the basic data types in Python. There's a function in Python called type function. It returns the type of the object we pass as an argument. We'll see. And I'm passing an integer, right? 2 is an integer. So I'm passing 2 to this type function, right? And I'm asking it to print it. Whatever the type function is going to return, I'm asking the print function to print it, and it's going to print that this 2 is an object of class integer, right? So this is an integer data type. Similarly, if I do something like this. It's going to give me that this is an object of class complex. This is a complex data type. Now there are lots of other mathematical operators other than the addition operator, obviously. There's subtraction, there's multiplication. You can subtract integers, floating points, and integers, right? You can even multiply. You can multiply using the asterisk. Just okay. See, uh, something interesting. Okay, what if we multiply a string object with an integer object? What if I do something like this? Can you guess? Maybe you can. What this will do is it will print lol 10 times. It is basically concatenating lol to itself 10 times, right? It's very useful. So, okay, further, you can divide using the division operator. That is a slash, 10 divided by 3. Slash is always going to give you a floating point as a result. Division operator is always going to give you a floating point. Even if I do something like this, it's going to give me 5.0, right? Always a floating point. There's a few additional operator in the same line. There's modulus operator. That is, no, this is a floor division. This gives me the integral part of that floating point result, right? So this always returns an integer, this always returns a floating point. I was talking about modulus operator. It gives me the remainder of the division. This is the modulus operator, and this gives me the remainder. This is a division operator. It always returns a floating point object. This is a floor division operator, which always returns an integer object, that is the integral part of the quotient, right? And this is the modulus division. It always returns the remainder of the division. There's exponentiation operator in Python, which is used to raise the number on the left to the power of the exponent to the right. I'll tell you. So this is basically 2 raised to the power of 3, and that is going to give you 8, right? So I guess that was numeric operators, basic data types in Python. Numeric operators, we learned about addition, subtraction, multiplication, division operator, modulus operator, floor division operator, exponentiation operator. We learned about basic data types in Python, that is integer, floating point number, strings, complex, right? We also covered statements, comments, and expressions. Expressions is a sequence of operands and objects. Statements are instructions which Python can execute. Comments are for the developers. Python does not execute it, it ignores it. So yeah, we'll continue further in the next video. Until then, take care. See you soon. Bye bye.